assumption that I thought everyone knew who they were, right?
They live.
They live.
Yeah.
Because we live in a hierarchical system, I'm going off tangent here, but this is my theory. Could be wrong. My theory is that human beings lived in a polytheistic, well they did, a polytheistic world until the birth of duality within religion. This happened with an Iranian Persian, prophet called Zoroaster. Okay, this was in the 6th century BC. Zoroaster said that before that you had polytheism, which was a belief that there were gods and goddesses everywhere, and there was gods for the trees, goddesses for the rivers, gods for the sky, and so forth. Polytheism was the longest running history and the longest running faith system in human history. It ran for probably about 40,000 years. Zoroaster came along in the 6th century and he said there's one God, there's just one God. Monotheism was developed. But he says there was a duality to the God and there's a duality to the universe. You had good and you had evil. Okay? God was good and the devil was evil. Okay? And you had this duality that then was imposed upon others. This gave anyone who was in a position of power tremendous ability to decide who was the God, and your enemies were with the devil. Phenomenal for controlling people. Okay, this really kicked off then in Babylon. In Babylon, what happened was, through human ingenuity, human beings became very, very good at farming, particularly irrigation systems. And the fertile plain between the Euphrates and the Tigris, you could grow basically anything. Okay? They discovered irrigations. They were excellent engineers, the Babylonians, and they discovered irrigation. Okay? Then they could actually cultivate and produce crops, particularly carbohydrate crops, grains, beans, and so forth. What they then discovered was that the people were then becoming away from a hunter-gatherer society and towards an agrarian society. So prior to that, people used to maybe gather a few weeds that you could eat, kill a rabbit, gather some fruit, and gather some nuts. When the agrarian society kicked in, people became dependent upon carbohydrates, particularly grains. And they were regulated according to the harvest. Okay. Now, if you're the Babylonian elite, and you are the beginning of the Babylonian elite, and you can control the harvest, right? You're the ones who stores the grain up, decides the planting system, runs the irrigation systems. The entire population of your city is totally dependent upon you, because you're keeping them alive through the harvest, through the storage of food and the distribution of food. What you then have then is the elite are now completely different than the masses. Because if the masses have a problem with the elite, they simply say, no barley, no wheat, no grain. And they started to see themselves as gods. And this is where our hierarchical structure, our pyramidal structure began. So if you think of Babylon, you would have had the noble classes, the kings and stuff like that. They would have needed administration classes below that, people who operate the farms, the irrigation systems. Below that, the ones who distributed the corn, the grains and the wheat. And below that, the masses who toiled in the fields in order to keep they at the top of the pyramid in their position of power. When the hierarchical structure came in, we were basically screwed as a species, because they at the very top became increasingly psychopathic in how they would see the rest of us. We were seen as a lesser species. They were the ones who were smart enough at the top to control the rest, and that became almost like a neuroses that the elites from Babylon into Greece, into Rome, into the Venetian Empire, into the Central European powers like the Holy Roman Empire, Spanish, British Empire, the American Empire to today. They, the ones at the top, are completely controlling the rest of us. Now, the only way a person from the bottom can get to the top is by demonstrating the same kind of values and belief package that they at the top have. They at the top have a psychopathic value system. Even if they're not psychopathic, they see themselves as the leaders. For instance, the divine right of kings. The divine right of kings. Prince Charles was not lying when he would say during a climate change summit, we, the rest of us, need to learn how to live with less stuff. He said this while having 4 palaces, a collection of sports cars, a private jet which he flew as an office to the Copenhagen summit, and in all sincerity said there, you people have to get used to less stuff. He didn't mean himself. He didn't mean himself, he meant us.